Hi guys, my name is Perrycate. Welcome to Landmatterskenya. Last time we were talking about the process to undertake when buying land in Kenya, and we went through some few steps. If you did not watch it, kindly go back to my first video, then you're going to find those steps there. So today we are dealing with the completion of this process, and we are discussing on which are the steps to undertake to transfer the legal ownership of property from the seller to the buyer. And as usual, I have my friend who is an advocate called Julius. He's going to take us through that. So welcome so much, Bwana Wakili.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
My name is Julius Juguna, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya.
Yes.
And I practice with the firm of Juguna Nganga and Associates Advocates.
Yes.
Thank you very much.
And it is good to say you're located in town.
Yes,
So we can find you there.
Yes, we are located along Kimali Street,
Yes.
Eagle House 54.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you so much for coming today.
Yes.
And we last time we discussed on the steps that we can undertake while buying land in Kenya.
Yes.
So today we want to go to the completion process.
Yes.
Whereby now we are transferring the ownership of property
Yes.
from the
seller to the
buyer.
Okay.
Yes. So I want to ask, because I understand there is the transfer signing
Yes.
of both both parties.
Yes.
So I want you to tell me
Yes.
how do we go about it?
Very well, very well. So one of the crucial documents in transferring the ownership of the property from the buyer to the seller in the transaction is the transfer document.
Yes.
This is a document that is signed by both parties,
Yeah.
both the buyer and the seller, indicating that the seller has effected the transfer of ownership from the buyer, from himself or herself to the buyer.
Yes.
So this document, there is nowadays we have a standard form which is generated by the Ministry of Lands, and that document is supposed to be signed by both parties, whether it is an individual or a company. In case of an individual, it's supposed to be signed by the seller himself. In case of the company, it's supposed to be signed by the directors of the company, and also we are going to put a company seal of that particular company.
Okay.
It's also supposed to be signed by the buyers, and then it's supposed to be witnessed by an advocate. And once that document is signed by both parties, executed, witnessed by an advocate, that document is duly executed.
And Bwana Wakili, suppose I am the seller and I'm not in Kenya, probably because we have seen it happen.
Yes.
Probably I'm outside the country.
Yes.
And I want to buy a property somewhere.
Yes.
Can I maybe appoint someone
Yes.
as my proxy to come and sign for me? Or
Yes.
what happens?
Yes, you can do that. But what you do is that you give that person what we call a power of attorney.
Power of attorney.
Yes, if you give that power of attorney, it's supposed to be prepared by an advocate, registered at the Ministry of Lands.
Yeah.
Then now that person who is appointed, he's given power, or she's given power by the buyer or the seller to execute the documents on his behalf or on her behalf.
Yes.
It can work for both the buyer or the seller. Yes.
Oh, thank you so much. So once we have duly executed the transfer,
Yes.
uniforms,
Yes.
so the next step, of course, is to obtain the consent
Yes.
from the land board.
Yes.
Can you elaborate that? Okay.
Yes, land consent is issued by the land board, and land board consent is issued by the administrative office, and in most cases it is issued at the DC or DO's office.
Yeah.
The seller is the one is supposed to give the consent to the buyer that he has sold the property.
Yeah.
Yes, that document is process is undertaken at the DO's office or DC's office.
Yes.
Yes.
And on that, I understand there is the special board and also the normal board.
Yes.
So
the difference is time that it's taken
Yeah.
to issue a consent, and also the finances involved.
Okay.
If you go through the ordinary board,
Yeah.
you are going to it is undertaken once per month.
Yeah.
But for the special consent, you can get it in a day. But the cost for the special board is a bit high.
So if you want your process to be speedy,
Yes.
you rather go to the special board.
Yes.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
Now, after then, I've obtained as a buyer, I've
Yes.
obtained the consent. Then, of course, I because there are some properties that are matrimonial property.
Yes.
How can I know that the person who is selling me land is selling with the consent of his family or her family?
Very well. Under the Law Act of 2012, you are supposed to, if you're selling a matrimonial property, you are supposed to issue or to give obtain a spousal consent.
Yeah.
If it is a husband who is selling, if it is a man who is selling, he's supposed to get a consent from the wife.
Yes.
And if it is the wife who is selling a matrimonial property, the husband has to give the spousal consent. It is a requirement under the law, and actually spousal consent is an affidavit. So if you sell a property without the consent of the husband or the wife, that wife can come, or husband can come and initiate a process of nullifying the whole transaction. So it is part of the due diligence on the part of the advocate who is carrying out the transaction to ensure that if there is a husband or wife, there is a spousal, he gives a spousal consent. And in case there is no husband or wife, the seller is supposed to sign a consent, a spousal consent, saying that he is not married.
He's not
so
married.
Either way, you have to issue a spousal consent, which is basically an affidavit. And if you give wrong information, then you'll be prosecuted for giving wrong information under oath.
Held responsible.
Yes.
Very well, because I have seen many people who have sold property without the consent of their spouses, which come later and cause some problems in the family. So I think the spousal consent is very much important.
The advocate for the buyer is supposed to ask for that document before the transfer is effected. In any case, even at the land board, the spousal consent is a requirement. Yes.
And now, of course, I've obtained the spousal consent, and of course, now the next step is to get the stamp duty done.
Yes.
How do I go through that process?
So, now once you obtain those documents and the transfer document is signed, you present it to the government valuer, and in most cases, they are stationed at the land registry or a particular area. So, the stamp duty that you're supposed to pay, it's basically a tax that you pay to the government. So you pay 2%. The land is supposed to be valued. You pay 2% of the value of the property if the land is situated in rural area, and you pay 4% of the valued amount if the land is situated within the municipality. And you pay that money directly to the government. The valuation is done by the government valuer. He assesses the amount of money that you are supposed to pay. Once you are issued with the receipt or rather valuation report, you go and pay at the bank.
And paying directly to the government, you mean paying directly to the bank? Yes,
and you are issued with a slip.
With a slip that you present to the
land registry, because it's one of the requirements of one of the documents that are required to effect the legal transfer of ownership of the property.
And unless I am not right, I think we still pay at the KCB bank.
Yes,
because it is a government.
It is a government bank.
Yes. Right now,
and it's also good to emphasize there are people who don't pay that duty.
Yes.
You know that if failure to pay stamp duty can make that transaction to be nullified. Even the title can be cancelled. If the government conduct an audit and it is discovered that you never paid the stamp duty, that title deed can be nullified. In most cases, what people do is that they give brokers money who don't pay that tax. It is very important, because remember, at the end of the day, it is not the broker who will be followed, it is you. And it is very good for us to emphasize here that stamp duty is paid by the buyer of the property. It is not the seller. The one who is buying the property is the one who is supposed to pay stamp duty.
We have the capital gain tax.
Yes.
Which is normally paid.
Yes.
To maybe lands that are above.
Yes. What happens is that, and actually many people don't know about this tax. Capital gain tax is paid
on the other day.
Yes. It is paid by the seller. And on the profits. For example, if I bought a property at Kenya shillings 3 million, and I'm selling it at 5 million, I'm supposed to pay a capital gain tax of 5% on 2 million. So the profit that I have made from this transaction is 2 million. So I'm supposed to pay 5% of 2 million.
Of 2 million.
That's what
that
we
is
call
my profit.
Yes, that's what we call capital gain tax.
Yeah, but then most people would be like, how will the government know that I have made this kind of profit? Because maybe I bought my property or a piece of plots at maybe 600,000. Then I'm selling it at 1 million. That's a profit of about 400,000. So how is the government going to know that I made a profit of 400,000? Because I can easily forgo that.
It is upon the seller to make to act on good faith and declare, because you are supposed to make a declaration of the amount of money that you have earned. It's the same way that we declare the income tax. It is the same way that we declare the amount of money that we have made from a particular business transaction. Yes, so it's upon you to make good, because remember, at the end of the day, the government has its own mechanisms which they can use to establish the amount of money that you make. Yes.
So you better be honest.
Yes, better be honest.
No, I think we have identified all the legal documents that you're supposed to have attached to your transfer form. And there are some other documents like the PIN.
For this what we call a completion document. If I am the buyer, or rather if I'm the seller, I'm supposed to give you, the buyer, or your advocate, a copy of my ID, a copy of KRA PIN, and a photo, current photo, passport photo. If it is for the
one photo, or how many are these supposed to be? Three.
At least 3. If it is for the company, if the seller is a company, you're supposed to give a registration certificate or a certificate of incorporation, and what we call CR12. CR12 is the document that indicates who are the shareholders and the directors of a particular company.
So the buyer now has all the documents that he or she is supposed to attach to the transfer form. So now, of course, the next step is to lodge those documents to the land ministry or the land office, the land ministry that the relevant land ministry. So after lodging, what are you supposed to do as the buyer now?
You lodge the document, you present all those documents now at the land registry, the relevant registry. Then you pay the relevant government fees. There's some money that you are supposed to pay, which is in most cases it's below 5,000. You pay for that money for you to be issued with a title deed. There's something that is very crucial at that stage. Ensure that you present at least 2 transfer documents, because the ministry will be left with the 1 document, and for you it's good for evidential purposes to be given back 1 transfer document which is duly signed and dated, and stamped by the land registrar, to ensure that you complied with all the necessary steps to effect the legal transfer of the property.
And so that maybe it can help you to follow up on the stages of which your title deed has reached. That it can be issued. That is very important. Actually, most people just present one transfer form and then they leave it there.
In some cases, you can find someone has been issued with a title deed, but if you look at the transfer document, it is not signed, it is not stamped by the land registrar, and it is not even dated. So it means something went wrong. And in case of a suit in the at the court of law, you might not have the good evidence to support your case. That you really bought this piece of land through the right channel. That is very nice and very important, especially for people who are planning to do buy
transfers and buy properties and all. So now you have been issued with a title deed from the your relevant land office. Now, most people will be like, how do I now verify that this is the correct, the genuine title deed? Because you know sometimes what happens, people get fake title deeds and they are issued. Then they later come to realize they are actually not the owners of that piece of, they only have a title deed.
2 things. 1, you are supposed to do a search. Now, once you are issued with a title deed which bears your name as the buyer, you are supposed to do a search, a fresh search. Yes, which now will indicate who is the bona fide and the legal owner of that property. And secondly, you are also, it is good, it's a good practice for you to present now that new title deed to the land registrar to verify for you whether that title deed is genuine or not. Yeah, many people don't do that, but it's a good practice.
Viewers, we have already obtained the correct and genuine title deed. I hope you followed the process. We want to give a bonus to a person who asked a question on in our last video. They were asking on our Kili, if I want to buy a property from a deceased person, or maybe want a transfer of ownership from a deceased person, what or which procedure am I supposed to follow? Just quickly.
Very well. Once a person passes on, once a person dies, you cannot buy a property from his name unless that property is with the express consent of the court. You can buy a property from the estate of the deceased person through the administrators, but you cannot buy a property from the, a dead person cannot transfer a property. So you have to go through. And for example, there are some people who engage in transaction. They start a transaction with a person. Unfortunately, the person dies before the transaction is completed. What you are supposed to do is that the family of the deceased person is to lodge what you call succession in court. Once they lodge that succession in court, you are supposed to appear to be included in that process as one of the beneficiaries by virtue of being a buyer. So once the properties are distributed to the children, your portion will be transferred to you as a buyer, not as a child, but as a buyer. But you cannot sell anything belongs to the dead person without the consent of the court. We call it intermeddling. It is criminal.
It's criminal.
Yes.
Very well. Thank you so much. And as you've heard, you can purchase land legally in Kenya, and you don't have to be afraid. That's why we have the advocate, as you have said, to help us in that process.
Maybe we can correct it and say it's a criminal offense. It's a crime. Because criminal is a person. It's a crime.
It is a crime.
Yes.
So thank you so much, Bwana Wakili, for taking us through that process until you have obtained a legal, document of ownership. That is the title deed. Thank you so much. And we want to tell you viewers, if you want any clarification or if you need help, or that you can use to obtain a title deed or purchase property, you can always contact him. He's here for you. Thank you so much, and see you in our next video. There are many coming up to help you in any purchase of property in Kenya. Thank you so much.
Thank you.